Well, we have a stunning turn of events in the saga that was President Biden's Disinformation Governance Board, also known as the Ministry of Truth. It's been paused or canceled, we think. We don't quite know. But according to the Washington Post this afternoon, which came out with this weird kind of half and half headline, how the Biden administration let right-wing attacks derail its disinformation efforts.
They're saying here is that this disinformation campaign has been derailed. They later on say that Nina Jankowicz, the head of it, who was a fraught candidate for this job, she's handed in her resignation. And then the rest of the article goes on to tell how she was attacked personally as a woman and it hurt her feelings a lot, and no one in government was protecting her enough.
Okay. So again, ignore the sort of crazy headline here, which is written by Taylor Lorenz or the team from, the Washington Post. A pause of the Department of Homeland Security's newly created board comes after its head. So they're pausing it for what, like a review of whether or not they're going to go on with it, even though she's handing in her resignation. Well, just call it what it is. It's done, right? I mean, that's exactly what happened here. It's done. But the headline reads like it's a pause. And by the way, the headline frames it as this was a right-wing attack that literally derailed this disinformation effort.
And now, it also is a little like daddy didn't step in to protect her from it. That is really how the article reads.
Well, what's crazy to me is, first of all, we are not a right-wing show. We are, large, I'm pretty progressive. And we went right after this. The moment this story came out that they were creating this Ministry of Truth, we went right after it. And we started to look into her past. We started to look into her history, going after journalists, going after independent media. So this sort of right-wing attack. Now, where does that come from? So the Washington Post says that this attack was led by Jack Posobiec, who he's a Twitter user, and he's the host of the Human Events show. I mean, to give this guy this much power is ridiculous. Clearly an axe to grind. So here's what Glenn Greenwald says. He says, it's a cause of momentary celebration that the Department of Homeland Security was forced by popular anger to pause its disinformation board and the absurd resistance cartoon they hired to run it. But read this to see how angry Washington Post and Taylor Lorenz are that this happened, right? They're specifically targeting Jack Posobiec. It's so hard for me to say it on the roll. This is Jack. Okay. He was literally in the middle of the Vatican when he received word about this, was just walking around the Vatican to find out that Taylor Lorenz dropped a hit piece on me for exposing the Nina Jankowicz disinformation board.
Okay. But that's your fault for checking your phone while you're on vacation.
Right. So he did post a photo, by the way, of the Sistine Chapel's roof, which you're not supposed to do. But anyway, he says, here's my response. I'm not going anywhere. So, but to give this guy that much credit, I mean, this idea, and Jack even tweets about it. He says, this entire Homeland Security Orwell board halted in its tracks because of me, that blew their doors wide open. He's laughing about it.
No, because there also was Senate testimony where the Department of Homeland Security was asked, did you check her background? Did you know she did this, that, and the other? And their response was, no, I didn't, but I was the one who hired her. But I'm not sure about those things, right? So it wasn't just a viral movement. There were also lawmakers who were concerned about it, right? And also the idea that anyone would need a disinformation campaign coming from the government is very condescending. It tells the rest of us that we're too stupid to know the difference between when information is valid or not. And so this government, with a vested interest in our belief systems, will tell us how to believe. Thanks.
Here's what Glenn says. Without having the U.S. government's Department of Homeland Security have a disinformation board run by Nina Jankowicz to decree truth and falsity, how will we know what we should believe or not believe? And how can a democracy function without the Department of Homeland Security telling us what is true and false?
It just was incredibly ballsy to have a department like this at all, right? When in fact, all government agencies have public relations spokespeople who tell us exactly what they want us to believe. So, the Post has quotes from people from the Department of Homeland Security saying, well, people who were attacking this had a fundamental misunderstanding of what we meant for it to do. It wasn't really to tell you what to believe or what not to believe. It was just to see how misinformation and disinformation was affecting national security, right? Which is just such a fuzzy line. Like, we won't get involved until we think that it is dangerous. But according to them, everything is dangerous, and we don't know the difference between anything, right? So it did not make a strong case for itself. Now, in this article, it's just a strange headline. Like, the Biden administration let this sink because they, there's so many emotional assumptions that we have to get on board with to understand what the heck the story is about, when the story really is about the cancellation of this department. And then it reads as a who's who of government officials who did not protect her while she was being basically dragged through the mud online for things that she had done. And it accuses anyone else.
Had said.
Yes, but it accuses anyone of pulling things from her past social media as you're pulling it out of context, right?
So you attack Jack Prosobiec, right? So like ridiculous, right? You're angry about a guy who has a few million followers on Twitter. Who cares? I mean, there was Senate hearings where Rand Paul literally eviscerated the head of the Department of Homeland Security, basically saying, "Hey, do you know who the biggest perpetrator of lies and disinformation in the world, in the history of the world, is? It's the United States government." And he
we're in no position. Yeah.
Right. So like this idea that it's Jack Prosobiec, I like his Twitter feed. I like what he does, but this no, it was the outrage over this ridiculous board. I mean, and her past, here's just a few examples, right? Just to remind you, here's from 2020. Back on the laptop from hell, apparently Biden notes 50 former NatSec officials, 5 CIA heads, the laptop Russia influence opportunity. No, the Russian influence op. Russia, right?
She did later clarify that tweet by saying she was live tweeting something. She was not actually trying to say that it was truth, which I would push back and say, well, okay, in your expertise on disinformation, how would your Twitter followers know the difference? Right. How would you counter that tweet then? That would be a productive way to further this conversation.
We've looked at her attacks on right-wing media, her attacks on independent journalists like Max Blumenthal at The Gray Zone. I mean, she's on TikTok pushing those ridiculous Russiagate debunk stories with singing and dancing like to Mary Poppins.
And she has the right to... Please, Clayton.
Takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet. So disinformation's origins are slightly less atrocious.
I'm gonna really miss this. I'm really gonna miss this.
Let's make this the last time we play it.
But I mean, here she is talking about Russiagate. She's telling about, she's literally spinning yarns in a song on TikTok. Like, this was never going to go well. This is your choice for this. There's not an ounce of self-awareness, though, in this Washington Post piece that perhaps this should have never been trotted out to begin with. Like, we should have never had a disinformation board to begin with.
No, and it plays out as very sexist, too.
Right.
Like, they are attacking her because she's a woman. They pulled things out of context, right? They should not have had questions about anything. And she absolutely has the right to have those opinions, right? About Russiagate. She has the right to put that on her social media. But does she have the right to represent all of us with government tax dollars if she clearly has a partisan take? That is a fair question.
Yeah. I mean, just again, look at her history, look at the things that she's attacked, look at the independent journalists like the Gray Zone, by the way. There's very few independent journalism outlets out there that are doing excellent work, free of Washington, free of billionaires who are bankrolling them. And the Gray Zone happens to be one of them. And she attacks them, goes after them.
Pull up the Washington Post story again. If you take a look at this photo that the Washington Post actually runs with this sad story about how her career is over in this role, you'll see that it's a picture of her in 2019 working away on her laptop at Zelensky's campaign headquarters. So we're saying she's nonpartisan because, well, it is nonpartisan to want to go to war with Ukraine. It may not be unanimously approved by taxpayers. But, you know, that's what we're supposed to say is nonpartisan, working for one side of a war we are involved in, which, okay. That's, again, so many assumptions here. The assumption that we're all sad about it, the assumptions that, you know, that the sort of powers that be threw her under the bus and didn't protect her like they should have, the assumption that it was only these sort of right wingers that took her down, not moderate people like us saying, interesting, her takes have been a bit uncomfortable in the past. Is she really someone to represent all taxpayers, and the existence of this at all, which is very condescending and also terrifying.
Yeah, it's absolutely terrifying. And so is this.
Pondering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying...
We will not be playing that again.
Yeah. Bye, Nina. We hardly knew you, but it was so good. It was
Don't
a good...
gloat, though.
I am gloating.
Don't
This was
gloat.
awful. I am going to gloat.
We are not gloating.
I am gloating. I am absolutely. Let me know in the comments below. Are you gloating? A ministry of truth that can tell you what is and what is not information you are allowed to read, see, hear, or think about by your federal government?
By most, and it seems like she was kind of an amiable person that, like, I don't know, maybe not amiable. Okay, I don't want to say that. I'm just saying.
I'm gloating. Bye, Nina. Thank you so much for subscribing to our channel. You know, we've been banned, we've been blocked, we've been censored. That's why we started our own website, to stay connected with you for free.
That's right. So head on over to redacted.inc and make sure you're connected with us. You can sign up again at redacted.inc, not .com.